Midway through Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis stopped. The microphone lowered. His eyes locked on a boy in the front row, hands trembling, a small sign in his lap. The boy's lips moved, but no sound came. 15,000 people fell silent. In the Memphis night, before we continue, make sure you're subscribed, because these are the moments that prove music can speak louder than words. This is the night Elvis did something no one in that arena would ever forget. The flipboard clattered overhead, click, 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 and then the word "No Traveler Wanted to See" delayed. Flashing in burnt orange letters, a groan rolled through. Gate C at Memphis International. Briefcases slumped to the floor. A mother pulled her kids in closer, muttering under her breath. Somewhere near the snack bar, the smell of burnt coffee hung thick in the air, mixing with the tang of floor polish. That's when the sliding glass doors hissed open. A tall man stepped inside, flanked by two aides in dark jackets. He wore a crisp, white-collared windbreaker, the collar high, and large tinted sunglasses that hid most of his face. But even in the fluorescent light, even without the stage lights, people noticed, heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Some passengers whispered to each other, others just stared. That double-take moment when your brain catches up to what your eyes are telling you. It was Elvis Presley, not the Vegas stage. Elvis with the gold spotlight behind him, but a quieter version. His hair perfectly set, his walk unhurried, almost shy. He didn't carry himself like a man who wanted the whole room looking at him at the counter. The ticket clerk was explaining to a line of weary travelers, weather's bad over Nashville. All flights grounded until further notice. When Elvis reached her, he took off his sunglasses. His eyes were softer than anyone expected. "Guess we're all stuck here, honey," he said, his voice low but warm. A tiny smile flickered at the corner of his mouth. The clerk laughed once, nervous, then tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Looks like it." He glanced round the lounge. People were pretending not to stare, but the air felt charged, like everyone was holding their breath. Then he saw him, a little boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting cross-legged near a row of vinyl chairs. In his hands was a cardboard guitar, cut from a packing box. The strings were drawn on with black marker. He was strumming silently, lips pressed together in concentration. Every few seconds, the boy's eyes darted up, toward Elvis, then back down again. Elvis tilted his head, studying him for a moment. Something in his expression shifted. Without a word to anyone, he stepped away from the counter. His aides hesitated, glancing at each other, but didn't follow right away. The boy's mother noticed Elvis coming. She froze, mid-sentence, her hand hovering above her purse strap, and then, in that slow, deliberate walk of his, Elvis crossed the lounge floor, every step making the room a little quieter. The boy stopped strumming. His eyes went wide. The cardboard guitar slipped slightly in his lap. Elvis stopped just a few feet away. He lowered himself down, one knee on the carpet, until he was at the boy's eye level, and then he smiled. "Is that your guitar?" The boy nodded, clutching the cardboard guitar tighter. Elvis reached out, brushed a finger along the edge. "Looks like you've been practicing." The boy's mother leaned in. "He made it himself," she said softly. "Won't go anywhere without it." Elvis chuckled, a low, warm sound. "Mind if I try a little something?" The boy's eyes went round as coins. He handed it over. Elvis took the guitar gently, balanced it on his knee, and strummed a playful chord. The sound was nothing but the rasp of cardboard under his fingers, but he grinned as if it were a Gibson humming through an amp. Around them, a few passengers noticed. An older man in a fedora lowered his newspaper. 2 teenagers leaning on. The vending machine stopped talking mid-sentence. "You know," Elvis said, tilting his head toward the boy, "this thing's only missing one thing, a little tune to go with it." He hummed a slow, rich note. It carried just enough in the tiled space to make a few more people glance over. From behind the counter, the ticket clerk peeked. The vending machine hummed in the corner, a steady bass note under the quiet. "Hey." Elvis called toward her, "You got an upright piano hiding somewhere back there." She laughed nervously. "Not unless you want the one in the employee break room, and that's missing half its keys." Someone further down the lounge pointed toward a corner where a few unclaimed items sat against the wall. "Think there's a guitar in Lost and Found." Sure enough, a dusty, slightly battered acoustic leaning against a suitcase. A baggage handler in a navy cap brought it over, almost sheepish, as if carrying a crown. Elvis adjusted the strap, tested the strings, twisting a couple of tuning pegs until the notes rang truer. His fingers settled in like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. The first few notes of Love, Me Tender, floated out, slow, unhurried. The tone was softer than any stadium performance, but it seemed to wrap around the room like a warm coat. A man at the gate desk stopped typing. A young couple leaned closer together. Even the intercom stayed silent. Elvis's voice joined the guitar, low, steady, almost conversational. Each word sounded like it was meant for the dozen or so people now gathered near. Passengers edged closer, some sitting on the floor. A janitor paused, leaning on his mop. The air smelled faintly of coffee, dust, and the faint metallic temps from the nearby snack counter. The boy watched, hands hovering in mid-air as if still strumming his cardboard guitar. His mouth moved with the lyrics, barely noticeable unless you were close, halfway through the second verse. Elvis glanced toward the counter, toward the ticket clerk still watching from behind her desk. He gave a small nod, a silent invitation to join the chorus. She shook her head quickly, cheeks flushing pink. That's when, from the back of the crowd, a man in a rumpled business suit reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a harmonica. He stepped forward just a little, brought it to his lips, and let out a soft, bending note that slipped right under Elvis's melody like it belonged there all along. People in the lounge smiled at each other, strangers suddenly sharing something intimate, and then Elvis did something no one expected. He stopped mid-verse. The guitar fell silent. The harmonica player froze, mid-breath. Elvis looked down at the boy, still clutching his cardboard guitar, and held out a hand. "Come stand with me, son." The boy glanced at his mother. She gave a tiny nod, the kind that says go on. He slipped off the vinyl seat, the cardboard guitar dangling at his side. Elvis waited, hand still out. A small smile in the corner of his mouth. The boy took it before they could move. A shadow loomed over them. "Double quote, sir." "We can't allow," the security officer's voice cut short as soon as he saw the face under the dark hair and sideburns. His posture changed instantly. "Elvis Presley." Elvis gave him a slow grin. "Mind if I finish this one?" The officer stepped back without another word. Elvis rested a hand on the boy's shoulder, guiding him to the center of the small open space between the rows of chairs. The battered acoustic guitar hung from Elvis's shoulder. He strummed the next chord, smooth as if no interruption had happened. The song picked up again, warm and steady. His voice filled the gate area, not blasting, but carrying with that natural weight that made people lean in. The harmonica joined back in, the player's shoulders swaying with the beat. The sound echoed softly off the tiled floor and glass walls. People stopped whatever they were doing. A businessman closed his briefcase without looking down. A janitor rested his chin on the top of the mop handle. Elvis glanced toward the ticket clerk again, eyebrows raised in another silent request. She shook her head, laughing, then quickly covered her mouth. Elvis grinned, turned back to the boy. "You know this part." The boy nodded. Elvis shifted his stance so they were side by side. The boy began strumming his cardboard guitar in rhythm with Elvis's real one, the notes silent, but his face alive with concentration. A few people started to clap along, slowly at first, then in time with the beat. Someone in the back whistled softly, halfway through the chorus. Elvis stepped back from the mic and let the harmonica and the crowd carry the melody for a few bars. It wasn't a concert, it was something smaller, closer, and that made it feel bigger. The ticket clerk leaned over the counter toward a coworker. "I've never seen anything like this," she whispered. When Elvis stepped forward again, his voice seemed even softer, almost like he was speaking the words to the boy alone. The final chord hung in the air. A couple of people exhaled, like they'd been holding their breath the whole time. But instead of launching into another verse, Elvis lowered the guitar. He looked at the boy for a long moment, then down at the scarf around his own neck. Soft, pale blue one he'd been wearing loosely under his collar. Slowly, he reached up, untied it, and held it in his hand. Then he bent down toward the boy. Elvis draped the pale blue scarf over the boy's shoulders, letting the ends fall against the cardboard guitar. The boy touched it like it might vanish if he held on too tight. "You wear that," Elvis said softly, "and you're in the band, eh?" Few passengers chuckled. The boy grinned, a shy quick flash of teeth, and stood a little taller. Elvis stepped over to a nearby PA cart, unplugged the mic from its stand, and lowered the stand until it was level with the boy's chin. The small silver microphone gleamed under the harsh airport lighting. "All right," Elvis said, strumming. "A new chord. We're gonna do this together." The harmonica man nodded, ready. The ticket clerk leaned forward on her elbows. Elvis started a slow, toe-tapping rhythm. The boy followed, strumming the cardboard guitar in exaggerated sweeps, his little elbows flaring out like a pro. The notes were silent, but his timing was perfect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis announced, "give a hand to my partner here." Applause filled the lounge, claps, whistles, even a few stomps on the carpeted floor. They launched into Blue, suede shoes. Elvis kept the tempo easy, letting the boy keep up. His voice was playful now, leaning into each lyric with that familiar drawl. A woman in a green coat began clapping in rhythm. A man in a pilot's uniform snapped Polaroids, shaking each print before tucking it carefully into his jacket. At the end of the chorus, Elvis leaned down to the boy. "You ever been to Graceland?" he asked quietly. The boy shook his head. His mother, sitting just a few feet away, froze in mid-dash smile. Elvis just gave a small nod, as if tucking that answer away. "We'll have to fix that." The boy's mother's hand went to her mouth, eyes watering. The crowd clapped along, some singing under their breath. A little girl sitting cross-legged on the floor tapped her palms on her knees to the beat dot in the middle of the next verse. Elvis stepped back, letting the harmonica and the clapping carry the sound. He watched the boy for a moment, the way he swayed a little, how serious his face looked despite the joy around him. Then Elvis leaned into the mic again. "All right, folks," last chorus. The lounge sang it with him, voices mixing in uneven harmonies. But together they were loud enough to turn a dull airport delay into something electric. As the final chord rang out, Elvis strummed one last note and let it fade into silence. The harmonica man lowered his instrument. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then the room burst into applause. Elvis rested his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You did good, partner," the boy beamed. His mother was wiping her cheeks with the edge of her sleeve. Then Elvis bent down, said something softly to her. Witnesses later swore they saw her eyes go wide, her mouth open just slightly in disbelief. She nodded slowly, almost as if she couldn't believe she was agreeing. Elvis straightened up, gave the boy one last pat on the back, and started to hand the guitar back toward the lost and found pile. But the boy held the scarf close to his chest, still standing right where Elvis had left him, the center of a stage that wasn't supposed to exist. And then the boarding announcement crackled over the intercom. The gate agent's voice echoed through the lounge. "Flight 218 to Nashville, now boarding at Gate C." Travelers stood, gathering coats and carry-ons. The spell began to break. People expected Elvis to slip away quietly with his aides, maybe wave once, maybe sign a quick autograph. That's how moments like this usually ended. But instead, Elvis walked straight back to the boy and his mother. The crowd slowed their shuffle toward the gate, curious. Elvis crouched down again so he was eye level with the boy. "You keep that scarf safe, all right?" The boy nodded, clutching it so tightly his knuckles whitened. Then Elvis reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, folded slip of paper. He held it out to the mother. "For you," he said. She hesitated before taking it, unfolding it just enough to see the handwritten note inside. Her eyes darted back up to him. "Sunday," Elvis said simply. "Bring the whole family. My treat." The mother's hand went to her mouth again. The boy looked between them, not quite understanding, but feeling the weight of it all the same. The note was more than an invitation. It was a pass to Graceland, written in Elvis's own hand, ending with a single letter, E. A few passengers, standing close enough to see, let out small gasps. One woman clutched her chest. Elvis stood, gave a final nod, and started toward the gate. His aides fell in behind him. The boy's mother stared at the paper like it might disappear if she blinked. 3 days later. According to neighbors, they boarded a different flight, this one to Memphis. They were driven straight to the gates of Graceland. The boy explored the house, the gardens, even sat in the jungle room chair that had been roped off for years. Before they left, Elvis handed him a full-size Gibson acoustic, warm from being played. A tag tied to the headstock read, "Play it proud." The boy's mother later told friends she'd never seen her son smile that big, not at Christmas, not on his birthday. She kept that guitar safe until the boy's wedding day, when she finally handed it to him. The scarf. He kept that for the rest of his life. Back at the airport, staff said the lounge felt different for weeks. The same burnt coffee, the same tile floors, but with a strange kind of glow in people's faces when they passed through. Maybe because they'd seen something rare. Kindness with no cameras. No stage, no ticket price. Something that only happened because a storm delayed a flight. Years later, in a small frame behind her kitchen counter, the ticket clerk kept one of those Polaroids. It showed Elvis in mid-song, the boy beside him holding that cardboard guitar, scarf draped over his shoulders. She said she'd look at it whenever the airport felt too loud, too rushed. "It reminds me that even here," she once told a reporter, "you can stop time if you care enough." For Elvis, moments like that weren't scheduled. They weren't part of a press plan or a tour stop. Witnesses say he'd often go quiet when he saw someone shy, someone overlooked. That night in the airport, he turned a delay into a memory because he noticed a boy no one else had. Local Memphis papers from the late 70s mentioned the event in brief. Presley entertains passengers during weather delay, but those who were there remember more than the headline. They remember the way the lounge fell silent when he began to sing. They remember the harmonica blending in like it was meant to be. They remember the boy's grin when the scarf touched his shoulders, and they remember how it ended, not with applause fading into the usual shuffle of boarding, but with a family walking out holding something that would last forever. The boy grew up, of course. The cardboard guitar disappeared, but the real Gibson stayed. Friends say he learned every Elvis song he could, playing them at family gatherings. Never for money, never for show, just because it felt right. The scarf stayed folded in a drawer for decades. Once in a while, he'd take it out, lay it across his lap, and smile quietly to himself. Even grounded in a fluorescent-lit lounge, Elvis gave people something to take off with. It's tempting to think of the king only in terms of the big moments, the sold-out arenas, the Vegas lights, the gold records stacked against the wall. But sometimes, the truest measure of a person is what they do when no one expects anything at all. That night proved something simple and rare. You don't need a stage to be unforgettable. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes. Kindness can turn any place into a stage. What's the most unforgettable act of kindness you've ever witnessed?